how are so many of these streaming services not profitable?
Because they have not figured out how for us all to share. We have one login for the whole United States, right? I think that's what we're doing.
USA, password 123.
That's right.
This is the One Step Better podcast. Helping small businesses make wins each and every week.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to the One Step Better podcast. Matt Patrick with me today. Matt, how many streaming services do you subscribe to?
Oh, dear God. Netflix, Prime, Peacock, Apple, HBO. Through Prime, I think we have 4 alone.
Yeah.
And then MLB, 11? I don't know, like all of them.
How is this better than cable?
I think I'm paying a lot more than I paid for cable at this point. I'm not sure. And I don't ever remember which network the shows I'm watching are on. So, yeah.
Here's what I don't understand. A couple of things. One, is streaming services like the biggest ripoff that we've ever bought into because of the unbundling?
Yeah.
Is supposed to be cheaper. Seems like a scam. Two, how are so many of these streaming services not profitable?
Because they have not figured out. We have one login for the whole United States, right? I think that's what we're doing.
USA, password 123.
That's right. I think if they ever figure that out, their subscriptions may go down even more. But the reality of it is I think if they do figure it out, they actually would make money.
Yeah, I think Netflix it was like 23 million new subscribers because they unleashed their whole password cracking down thing. I shouldn't say this in a recorded podcast, but I mean, we have
your parents.
We have a lot, but I don't pay for Netflix. I'm not saying who does, but I'm just saying I don't pay for Netflix.
Am I paying for your Netflix? Do you have my password?
I probably could.
You probably
I bet
could.
I could guess your password.
You probably could.
But no, my parents still are the king Netflix folks.
Yep. So very much. We have all that same problem.
Netflix is
my
interesting.
Parents though still don't understand how it works. So like we're on your Prime. Like, well, no, you're using our Fire Stick, but it's still your accounts on there. I didn't log in. I'm like, well, then I guess you are using mine because they don't know. They don't know. And if the Wi-Fi doesn't work, all hell breaks loose.
Yeah. Or when you go on vacation and you pull up somebody else's TV and you're logged into their stuff. So you start to play all of the crazy things that way on their recently played.
My house in Florida is that way. We always go, who was Steve logged in last time at the house?
Yeah. Who's watching this? Oh goodness. Netflix is interesting. If you remember back in the day, before Netflix, we had to walk into a Blockbuster, and there was something about that experience of walking around the aisles, finding movies.
Watched it.
And so here, I remember where the Blockbuster was over in Bartlett, where I grew up, and then there was a Cinemagic that came in shortly after, and a Hollywood movies that came in after, and they're basically the same exact things. You walk in, you rent a movie, maybe buy popcorn and candy. And how that relates is because today we're talking about continuing our series about mistakes that small businesses can make, and one of those mistakes that small businesses can make is simply not thinking on their own and just mimicking what their competitors are doing. I want to do the same thing that my competitors are doing. Hey, it's working for them. Why wouldn't it work for me? And we see that a little bit in this whole movie thing with, you had a Blockbuster, then you had a Cinemagic, then you had Hollywood movies rental place, and then you had your local movie rental place. And that's probably no different than nationwide. And then along comes this guy called Netflix that says, hey, maybe there's a different way to do this, that turned into something that is a household recognizable name that everybody knows today. And part of that is because they did not fall into the trap of, I'm going to do the same thing that my competitors do. And so one of the mistakes that small businesses make is simply I'm going to do what my competitors do. I'm not going to think on my own. I'm not going to innovate. I'm not going to try something different. And if you're not careful, you'll find, just like Blockbuster, that your doors are shut and a household name is no longer a thing. So today, that's what we're going to talk about. Matt, as you started an accounting firm, payroll company, now insurance business, how much did you look at what is everybody else doing to start versus looking at that today to maybe tweak or iterate what you're doing today?
In the very beginning, I only knew what I knew, right? So I knew I could do the work, and from a small business firm standpoint, I really didn't have any guidelines, and I really didn't know what other firms were doing. And so I probably cobbled together my own strengths and kind of figured out like what that looks like for me offering services, I can tell you I was way underpriced because I wasn't making any money. And I was also selling one-off stuff all the time, and it wasn't repeatable, which makes billing really hard and training and developing a system. As I've grown up, I have taken ideas from everywhere to kind of formulate what I think is our box of services and how we operate and the vision I have. But I definitely have used a cobblestone approach to that as opposed to saying, I want to be just like that person. I feel like getting ideas from others is perfectly fine. I think you still have to personalize them for you because you'll have your own skills and resources, strengths and weaknesses, but also you have a vision, or I had a vision of what I wanted, how I wanted to serve clients, which is a little different than others. It's very easy though to fall into the trap of, hey, this guy's successful business, I'm just going to recreate that. And that can work, but it still doesn't, I think, reiterate to the highest level that you could be by doing that. That's the franchise model.
I think it's like just an easy way out.
It can be an easy way out, or it's like, I don't have to think this way. I can just buy this box, and if I put this box together, it will sell itself. And
I think it can be successful, but I think there's a limit to that.
Yeah.
Got questions about how to run your business better? Join Works and Patrick Accounting for office hours. Every month on Thursday, several of our staff host open discussion Zoom meetings to share tips on business best practices, as well as answer any questions you have about their topic. We talk about QuickBooks tips and tricks, how to understand your insurance policies, employee onboarding, and the list goes on and on and on. Don't miss your opportunity to engage in the conversation and come away with some business tips. Register today at works.com/office hours. That's WHIRKS.com/office hours. Can't wait to see you there.
When you say that, the first thing that popped in my mind is in probably the mid 2000s, like 2005, 2007, somewhere around there, it seemed like everybody and their mother was opening a self-service frozen yogurt place.
Yep.
They started popping up over and over and over and over again. And somebody at some point had that concept in mind and they started it, and they've probably done really well. But the more people got into that same space, it diluted that entire
And then it
market.
went to cupcakes, and then it went to breakfast places later today.
Breakfast places today here in Memphis. Yeah. But it's interesting though, because typically first to market and something like that's going to win, and everybody else that's coming along is going to ride those coattails. But that ship goes down together. And it seems like today there's like, you can't go find frozen yogurt self-service places very often, or there's not very many of them here in Memphis. Now it's the rolled ice cream that happened for a while.
Big fan.
Not a big fan. It's interesting. I think that there is some wisdom in, you can get ideas from others. You can really test out market fit from others, what's working well, but the execution has got to be different, and there's got to be something unique about what you're taking to the market.
Yeah, I think about this a lot with, in our industry, payroll is very common. You'll see people are pricing services exactly the same way. They are basically offering pretty much the same stuff. The softwares pretty much do all the same things. You start looking at that and going, well, they're doing it. I probably could copy some of that. It makes sense what they're doing, and I'll just repeat that. But they have their own unique approach to it, just like we should have our own unique approach to it. How they price, what they want to do, how they want to serve their customers doesn't have to be exactly the same. There can be a better way. And it could be they're trying to acquire market. You don't know what their long-term strategy is. They could be acquiring market just to sell it, or they could be acquiring market to run everybody out of business, or whatever it is. And you need to think through what's the end goal you're trying to serve. I love, you start thinking about the impacts people, like Uber, how that changed the industry, or you think about how Apple changed the industry. I mean, the idea of buying a computer that was 5 times more expensive than everybody else's computer because it was pretty and it could do all the things, that doesn't make a lot of sense. Uber said, we're going to flip this whole industry, Airbnb, all these places that have really rethought the ability for people to consume what they're already consuming is really an interesting concept. You see a lot of businesses now they're stealing off of Uber, they're stealing off Airbnb concept for, car rental.
But it's the same principle that they've followed forever. It's what's working, I'm going to go redo that. And the thing that I think that you always leave out when you do that is that you're not them.
Right.
And this is why here at Patrick Accounting and Works, we're always open to share everything that we do with everybody that we come in contact with, because we know that they're not going to come into our market and take us away because they're not us. It doesn't mean that they can't pull that stuff off. It just means that we're always going to have our own flavor and flair to what we do. You can go mimic exactly what we do 100 times over, and you're still not us. And so it's
very much
got to
true.
understand the secret sauce. At McDonald's and Burger King, at the end of the day, they're fast food burger places. But how they execute that, how they pull that off, is very different. And that's there's something to that. I can't just go mimic a McDonald's and call it McMike's and be successful.
McDougal's, we've seen coming to America. It's McDougal's.
McDougal's, yeah.
No, but I think of like Chick-fil-A versus McDonald's is a better example in my mind, because I think about they're both selling fast food things, but they are not the same thing.
They're not the same.
How they serve customers, how they hire, their process by which they do things, the ability for them to serve their customers is not even the same sphere, but they're doing the same things. And so they are competitors, but they're not really competitors.
Yeah.
I think in our world, it's very easy for us to say, if I'm a pool service contractor and my competitor is charging $350 to open a pool, well, then by God, I could open a pool for $350. Exactly the same thing. Well, the reality is that you could probably, if you educated the buyer better about why you want to open the pool, when you want to open the pool, how the process works, the cover that you use, all the things that go into it, your service level and how you execute on that could be vastly different.
And you also have to keep in mind that the buyer that you're looking for there may be different than that $350 pool opening guy.
Correct. And you can probably, if you're doing those things, and you can create a expectation of service level that is well beyond them willing to pay $350, and maybe it ends up turning into a $2,000 or $4,000 or $5,000 opening of the pool because of how you service the pool and all that stuff. Well, those aren't the same things, and I think that us as we're comparing ourselves price wise, which I always think this kind of comes down a lot to price. People pay for a lot of things that don't make sense. So why are cars anywhere ranging from $10,000 to $1 million? They're all just vehicles. You got to think about what all that goes into that and drive value to what you're providing.
Yeah, I think value there is the key thing. I can't go mimic maybe a low cost, low margin, low service business at high prices. Like, that doesn't work. I wouldn't win there. But our marketing people, what they always say is different is better than better. And I think that holds true. I don't necessarily want to be a better version of whatever my competitor is doing. I want to be a different version of whatever my competitor is doing. Now, that's harder. It requires me educating the market a lot more than just, hey, you could go to ABC Co. Accounting Company, or you can come to Patrick Accounting Company. And those two things are different. Here's why they're different. Here's why. And all of that is still coming down to better. It's just going at it at a different approach.
And if it doesn't create value in the eyes of the beholder, then it's not better. Anyway. It's not better, and I can't justify the fee. I think of at Works Payroll, with Works, we have how we handle and want to serve and guide a client is different than how ADP or Paychex or Paycor or Paycom want to do it. They have a way. I guarantee they have plenty of great customers that do great, that do a great job for. However, we have an intentful idea of who our customer is and the value that we put on servicing that customer, as well as guiding them on how to do things better. I hope, and my desire is for that to create value that people are willing to pay for and get what they want out of it. My price could be lower or higher than Paycom or Paycor. I have no idea at the end of the day, but I do know how I want to serve my customer is different than how I want how I want to serve my customer is how I want to serve my customer, regardless of what they're doing.
Yeah, yeah. And the comparison there is, ADP, we'll just pick on them, they have payroll service, and they do it at a massive scale. They pay like one of every 7 Americans. I mean, it's insane. So that shows that there's a desire for outsourced payroll services. So then Works is going to come in and go through that same process of we have outsourced payroll services, but we're not trying to get to be where we're paying 1 out of 7 Americans. We want to.
We're not.
I mean,
We're not. Let's be clear.
It's not tomorrow. But we want to do that in a way that is educating business owners and their teams on how to do things better, how to improve their processes, bringing value to HR and technology and all of the things that people affect inside of your business, which is just a different approach. We call that's the right way. We go through an exercise, or we have an exercise of what's our 3 uniques. What are the 3 things that together we're going to do differently than everybody else in the market? And that's one of those things. We're going to take the right way. The process, the system, the tools, all of that stuff matters to us because it's all in the vein of helping our clients get one step better. So
no pun intended.
Actually, that pun was intended.
Pun intended, yeah. I guess so.
And so different is better than better. Don't always just mimic your competition. Hey, if they're doing it, that means I can do it. Or even the way that they do it is going to be the way that I do it. You guys are different than your competitors. What you're doing in the market is different than your competitors. So don't be ashamed or feel like you're missing out if you don't do exactly what they're doing. Charge appropriately for the value that you're bringing your customers, and everything will fix itself. Thanks, guys. I appreciate you tuning in. Make sure you subscribe so that you don't ever miss another episode, and we'll be back with you next week.
Thanks for listening to the One Step Better podcast. I'd really appreciate it if you would take some time to rate us 5 stars on your podcast player of choice, and make sure that you subscribe to our YouTube channel so that you never miss out on another episode. Thanks, and have a great day.